Well, I did just look at the time and I see it's 34 after, so I feel like out of respect for everyone's time, I would love to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you all to the Bicycle Colorado Storytelling Showcase. Sorry about that. It was a mouthful. But basically, we are really excited that you are here with us. We are also really excited for the warm days. I know here in Colorado, it has been so full of sunshine and warmth lately that we were so excited that we wanted to start the fun of the riding season and sort of kick things off by hanging out with one another and sharing some stories. And that's how we came up with the idea for the storytelling showcase. So I hope that you enjoy yourself and enjoy the stories that you are about to hear. Um, Before we get started, though, I would really love to take a minute to give a shout out to Quality Bicycle Products, or QBP, for all of their assistance and collaboration with us here at Bicycle Colorado in reference to the equity work that we've been doing. Our LCI scholarship program that we just finished taking applications for would not be possible without them. So thank you very much, QBP. So I don't know, I haven't looked at everybody who's in the audience, but if you don't have your camera on, we would love to see your faces. So feel free to turn your camera on. And don't worry if you don't have a camera, if you don't want to turn them on. It's totally okay, but we definitely would love to see your faces and kind of hang out with each one another. Okay, Erica, can you switch over the slide to the land acknowledgement? Thank you. I am having problems calling it up though, so give me just a second. I'm not sure, Erica, can you come off of mute actually and read that? Because for some reason I can't see it large and I would hate to do a disservice to the land acknowledgement by not catching all the details that you have there.
Yeah, absolutely,
Thank
Lauren.
you so much.
Yeah. We would like to reserve space to recognize and honor the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations, who were the original occupants and custodians of this land for centuries before genocide and ethnic cleansing. Everyone on this call, whether you're in Colorado or not, travels and recreates on stolen lands. And depending on where you are calling from, are occupying space held by other tribes than those mentioned in this list of Denver tribes. Indigenous people are still here and thriving, and we're grateful to these communities for their living descendants in Colorado and descendants of those forcefully relocated here for their wisdom and resilience in both the past and present. So thank you very much for acknowledging the tribes of Colorado and for celebrating and honoring these people and their land with us.
Thank you so much, Erica, and I apologize again for that technical difficulty. I really love that we did a land acknowledgement. It's so important for us to understand the history of the land where we're currently living, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Okay, so I would like to introduce myself maybe a little bit more thoroughly. My name is Lauren, and my pronouns are they and she. And joining me here tonight as my sort of co-MC is Eugene, and we are both on Bicycle Colorado's RIDE board. And RIDE stands for Respect, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. Eugene, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Bicycle Colorado, and all of our guests this evening. My name is Eugene Howard. I am a Denver resident. I also happen to work for the City and County of Denver and CU Denver. So I've got my fingers in a lot of different places. But one place that I really, truly love and I'm so grateful to be a part of is Bicycle Colorado. It's really kind of interesting, my journey to bicycling, and I'll save it for the breakout, but really, I think many of us have become more aware and sort of accustomed to this image, this stereotype of what it means to be on a bicycle. And even so far as to call folks cyclists, which for me conjures this elite athlete, super fit, super young, and also somewhat pale individual who's wearing Lycra with 0% body fat. And the truth of the matter is, all of us at some point most likely have been on a bike, whether we were small little children on up to where we are today. And so I think within Bicycle Colorado, while we want to honor and respect those avid cyclists who are super in shape and fit, there's more to our community than just that particular segment. And the work that Lauren and I and the other board members and advisory committee members get to do is really truly dispel the sort of myth or mystique around that image, while also broadening the spectrum and really truly looking for opportunities and ways to be more inclusive and welcoming, and really truly helping to promote bicycling as a form of exercise, a form of movement and mobility. It's a means to get around in our communities. And one of the things that I really hope I get to do is advocate on behalf of all of us, all of abilities, all ages, all racial backgrounds, ethnicities, and genders, everything, to really truly create a place that both the physical on the ground, lanes and trails and safe roads and passageways, to sort of the theoretical place where we all feel welcomed and a part of this wonderful community. So that was a lot. But really one of the things, or many of the things that really gets me excited about being involved with Bicycle Colorado, and really grateful to be here with you tonight. So just to give you a quick snapshot of what the evening will look like today, we want to keep it about 50 to 60 minutes. So I'm going to try to wrap my part up so we can get to the fun stuff. But we will hear from our lead storyteller, Jalen Bazile. I hope I got that last name pronounced correctly. And we've also got some other storytellers. Another person on is Ella Lyons. We're going to hear from Jalen, however, as our sort of key story for the evening. Then we're going to break into breakout rooms where we want to encourage all of you to share your ideas and your experiences and your stories. So really be thinking about something, 3 to 5 minutes, give us a little snapshot of who you are, why bicycling is important to you, perhaps why you came to the event tonight. And we really want to encourage you all to share. So don't feel like you can't, or that you're not qualified. If you've been on a bike, if you've touched a bike, then you're qualified to tell us a story. So we really hope to hear from you. And after about 25 minutes of that, we'll come back together and have a few minutes to close the evening and maybe do some reflection. So that's really kind of what we have in store for you tonight. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts and feedback after the event. So feel free to share that information with us so that we can continue to provide meaningful stories for all of you. And without any more time, and you guys will be able to talk to me in the breakout if you want to, I would love to introduce our headline storyteller, Jalen. So for those who don't know Jalen is a professional outdoors person and entrepreneur, and really dedicated to creating spaces that are open, welcoming, and affirming of people of color. And so, Jalen, you may want to share a little bit more about who you are. So I'm going to stop talking and turn things over to you and just ask that we all welcome Jalen to tonight's session. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eugene. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. All righty. Okay. So one, I'm just really excited to be a part of this. Thank you so much. And let's actually turn this off. So the story I have tonight to share with you is a story of place, family, and belonging. A little bit about myself. So I'm a outdoor, I like to call myself an outdoor professional. And I am an athlete, a community organizer. Right now I'm residing on the ancestral lands of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho in Golden, Colorado. And have been in the state of Colorado for the last 6, going on 7 years now. However, I've been saying that for a couple of years, so maybe it's been a little longer. To to give you some backstory, this is pretty much the vibe that I stepped into my first summer in Colorado. When I first came here, I worked at a summer camp and an outdoor ed center, and essentially worked up over the course of a few years to running the camp. And this is out in Florissant, Colorado, at the Colorado Outdoor Education Center, or Sanborn Western Camps. And if you don't know where Florissant is, it is about 50 miles due west, 50 miles due west of Colorado Springs. So at this camp, I really had my entire world open. Outdoor, pretty much the whole world of outdoor sports and everything was not something that was on my radar. And I came out here and not only were able to recreate, but also take other people out and kind of be responsible for other people's recreation and like lead people in the outdoors. And as a mixed race Black man, I really stepped into a role as like a community leader in these outdoor spaces. And so this is kind of what I did. I, took kids up mountains, and what I ultimately found in the outdoors was a sense of freedom. I really got to experience what, I got to find out what I was good at. I got to find a place. Florissant offered me a place to fail safely. And for me, it really became a home. As a young person, I really grew into myself. And so all that said, I was there in total about 4 years. I was the only Black person likely in the county. I would love to get some facts on this, but with that, it was absolutely home in a safe space for me, but also it was a space that I was constantly suppressing myself. And I have this image of Major Taylor, and this is a mural in Denver. And we think of these people long ago that were like the only ones, doing the thing that they were doing, back in the day. And I just want to, for me, I just want to say like that still happens today. Like Florissant is about 70 miles away. And I was the only one for like several years. So coming into, after I left, coming into the year of 2020, which was it was an incredible year. A lot of chaos, a lot of, tumultuous experiences, and being a Black person, it was incredibly heavy. And I found myself wanting to go back home. And home was not where my mom was or my family. It was Florissant. And I didn't just want to go home, but I wanted to bring my friends there. I wanted to bring, my chosen family there. And so I went out and I would go on these big bike rides and just kind of like explore the land. And here, this is kind of characteristic of the South Platte region, the ancestral lands of the Ute. And I spent a lot of time here over the summer, and then going into the year or going into the fall, I was like, I have to share this place with my people. So I drew up a route. I invited some really important people in my life. This is Dr. Rachel Olzer. She lives in Minneapolis, and I invited her. She's a storyteller and cyclist. I invited Evan Green, who's also an amazing cinematographer, incredible crusher in the outdoors, kind of like in all the senses, and Adam Pavlikevich, who's also a storyteller and photographer. And we essentially got together, and I was like, hey, I want to share this place that I call home with you. So we not only wanted to bike pack, which I really love, that is my favorite form of cycling, is bike packing, but we also wanted to climb. And so we stayed up well past midnight, packing up all the things necessary to bike pack and climb. And of course, like any proper adventure, we get off the ground going and immediately have a mechanical. So once we figure out our mechanical, we're going back. And I essentially am sharing this small outdoor ed center. I'm showing them like where I would go and learn how to fix my own car, where I'd go and like learn how to ride horses, how to, teach kids how to camp, etc. That, this is the place that I've been growing into myself for the last 4 years and longer since I've been back there. There's a lot of dancing, and I want to really paint the picture, because this was 2020. Here, I'll go back to this. This was 2020, and as a Black person, it was extremely difficult. And we found this really safe space out there, and of course, because it was, say, what is this, Teller County, Park County, we were riding, in Trump land, and this is pre-2020 election. And regardless of anybody's political views, just as a person who's lived there for a long time, as a Black person, it was often I was questioning whether or not I was safe. So it was interesting because I got to feel that uneasiness. Not, I wasn't alone in that for the first time, really, in all of those years. And of course, we didn't let it get us too down. We had fun. There's a lot of Fritos that were eaten. We found ourselves a campsite along the water's edge. And this is over by 11 Mile Reservoir, if you're familiar with the area. And we also did our own storytelling within this time. Rachel, being in Minneapolis, kind of at the heart, like ground zero in a sense, of everything that was happening last year. It was incredibly humbling to hear her experience, as well as Evan and Adam. And also, we were there to play really hard. So the next morning, we got up, got our climbing stuff ready, and we kind of were, it was like a moment in time that really stopped. We all kind of, everything kind of, the worries went away, the heaviness of the year, it kind of just like fell by the wayside while we're out there. And I took them down into one of my favorite places on the planet, 11 Mile Canyon. If you're familiar with 11 Mile Canyon, it is, it's absolutely a gem. The South Platte River goes through there, and it has a lot of rock climbing. And so I finally took that heavy pack off my back, and we started rock climbing, which was amazing. And then we spent some time in the water, and this was like such a dream, being in the fall, and the weather was perfect, and the water felt refreshing, and seeing other Black and brown riders out there with me experiencing that home, it was like I was seeing myself reflected in the people around me, which is something that is so, so important. And it has absolutely changed the course of my life since this trip even. And so, towards the end of the trip, we ended up, this was just an overnight. So, the next day after climbing, we went into the general store, and kind of got a feel for, what is this, Granite General, and learned a little bit more about the history. And towards the end, we were like elated. It was absolutely amazing. I think I really saw that they too could see why Florissant and the South Platte, why I called it home for so long, and why it felt so comfortable to just like be there. And particularly last year, it was, we all were looking for that place of belonging, that sense of like, hey, could we just go and kind of clear our minds? And so we, at the end, it was like, wow, this is an experience that we have to have again. And so what has happened since then is now there are several people who are asking, hey, like, could I go ride in Florissant with you? And since then, I've already led 2 other trips in Florissant, and it's becoming kind of a cycling within my own kind of crew. BIPOC cycling crew is becoming a sought after place amongst my friends. So it feels very much like that trip has, it's like being able to share my home and being able to share a place that is so special with me. It's like a gift that keeps giving back. And we also, to kind of wrap up, we also put together a short film that is on Outside Magazine. If you'd like to watch that, Evan did an amazing job. These are just some of the photos that Adam captured while on there. So yeah, I can drop that in the chat, but I appreciate you listening to my story. So thank you. Here, let me go ahead and stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jalen. That was awesome. It was really great to see those pictures and how beautiful the area is as well. And I am also a fan of Fritos while I'm bike packing. So I'm right there with you. I have to have the chili cheese ones. Those are my flavor.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right. Well, now that we've heard from Jalen, I just wanted to connect back and talk about Bicycle Colorado for just one more second. Bicycle Colorado is Colorado's advocacy and education nonprofit, and it's also a member-supported organization. So I would love to just give a shout out to any of our members in the audience here. Thank you so much for your contributions. Okay, now it's time for us to get a little more intimate with each other, and we are going to break into our breakout rooms. Once we're in our breakout rooms, we're going to hear some more stories like Eugene told us. And we're hoping that we're going to hear some stories from you. I can't wait to see what we have in store there. Don't worry about any of the logistics. We've got it. Just sit back and prepare yourself to hear some great stories and maybe to share as well if that's what you're into. And then once we're done with that, we'll rejoin back in this bigger room and then we'll go through some Q&A if we have time. All right, without further ado, I think we're going to get separated into breakout rooms. Hello, everybody. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm so glad that you could join us in breakout room 1, whatever that means, but we're all here together. I like to think that we're going to hear the best stories, but if we don't know what's going on in the other room, but rest assured we're recording the other sessions, so you'll have access to those stories as well. Ella, would you like to talk to us about Tandem?
Sure. Hey, first of all, I just want to say thanks to Jalen for that. Gosh, when you came on, I couldn't for the life of me figure out how I knew you. And I read the article or saw that thing in Outside Magazine. So that was awesome. I know a celebrity now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the title of mine was or is The Joys and Sorrows of Tandem Riding. And I chose this topic because I do it quite a bit. But as I started putting my story together, I thought, oh my gosh, there's no sorrows. So I don't want to disappoint you. I want you to know I don't really have any sorrows. So thanks for inviting me. Yes, I'm Ella Lyons. I'm on the board for Bicycle Colorado, have been for a number of years. And as someone said, I served as president. So I'm an avid cyclist, and out of my 8 bicycles, I own 3 tandems. A coupled tandem that we travel with, a racing tandem that's set up truly for racing, and just recently a gravel tandem, which is a blast. So probably like many of you, I began riding around the age of 4, and I can clearly remember like begging my mom to take those stupid training wheels off. And I still remember to this day the actual feeling that I had, that even that young, to feel that freedom and actually the speed. And we'll talk a little bit more about speed later. But fast forward about 25 years from there, and I was living in Colorado and enjoying road and mountain biking. And then just seriously, out of nowhere in my head, so 25 years ago, I said, I want a tandem. I had no idea who I was going to ride it with. I just knew I wanted a tandem, and they were probably around then. I just really wasn't aware of it. So my first tandem was a Cannondale MT3000, in case any of you know stuff like that. I had a younger brother back in Pittsburgh, which is where I grew up, who was able to get me a deal from a bike shop out there. And I was so excited. So this bike was being shipped to me from Pittsburgh, and I was talking to my younger brother on the phone, and he said to me, man, I wouldn't want to be in charge of 2 lives. And I was like, oh, this like bubble burst. I'm like, oh man. And I think at the time I felt a little bit angry about it. Like, oh, you just like ruined my whole day here. And then to be fair, as I got into riding a bike with tandem with people, I realized, that was probably the best one-liner that anyone ever said to me about riding a tandem. And just so you know, I ride aggressively. I love to ride fast, but I like to think that I'm thoughtful about the risks I take. And as we all know, as bike riders, there's risks. So I found, as the captain, I actually found women to ride with me. Mostly men would not get on the back of the tandem. And those people included friends, coworkers, and even my mom at one point. And then in 1999, I met Jeannie, who's now been my partner for 21 years. She was willing to jump on the back of the tandem, relinquish all control, work hard, and most importantly, have fun. And I just want to say, I'm not trying to have a lesson here in tandeming, but the stoker is really the glue of the tandem. And, in marriages, they have lots of different sayings, but I say if the stoker's not happy, it's going to be a hell of a long ride. I think being the captain takes confidence and strength, but being the stoker takes courage. So why ride a tandem? Now I'm going to try to sell you on that. I mean, there's obvious reasons. If one person is stronger than the other, and you're always looking over your shoulder for your compadre, or busting butt to try and keep up with people. On a tandem, you have no choice. You are right there together. And I always say the stoker's drafting off me. The other thing, you can talk. Like if you're not racing or whatever, you can talk. And the one fun thing is you can navigate on the fly. So our first trip to Ireland one time, it came with maps. We didn't have GPS. This is, probably sometime in the mid 2000s. So we just pinned the map to the back of my jersey. And that way we weren't always stopping, trying to figure it out, so that's kind of fun. And the stoker gets to take pictures, point out wildlife, scenery. And here's the positive of the stoker. So in case someone's trying to talk you into that, you can duck from bugs. I mean, if you ride the Platte Trail, those little gnats, I'll be covered them and Jeannie will be like, what? What bugs? Same thing with rain and hail. I'm protecting her. Anyway, my reason after getting into riding a tandem was really about the speed. I love going fast. And some people think that tandems go a lot slower, but if you have two strong riders, and in my case, two riders of pretty equal weight, you go a lot faster on the flats and the downhills. And honestly, we're not that much difference unless it's a big steep hill. So we've taken our tandem all over the place. One of our first trips was to Cape Breton, where we actually pulled a bob, beast of burden with all our gear. It was self-supported. Got a lot of stares from the Canadians because our bike at that point looked like a semi going down the road, but it was a lot of fun. We've since upgraded to a much lighter travel tandem where we've been to Ireland, Spain, France, Germany, all over. Back here in Colorado, we have our racing tandem, and we've competed in time trials and Grand Fondos. We haven't done that pack racing. I don't know. That still, after even 25 years, it scares me a little. Although, believe me, even in those races, you're right on each other's butts. We've done the Vancouver to Whistler, which I just almost said to you guys, it was awesome. But what happened was they had a 100-day drought going on there. And the day of the Grand Fondo from Vancouver to Whistler, it started pouring rain. And so for 75 miles, I could see about 30 feet in front of me. But rumor has it, it's a beautiful ride. So if you ever get to do it, go do it. we've also done a lot of organized rides. We enjoy going down to Santa Fe. That's a relatively flat century, so our goal usually is to do that under 5 hours, and we have. We've done the triple bypass 7 or 8 times, and we do a lot of the MS and charity rides because we certainly like to give back to those. And so I'll just tell you that the fastest that Jeannie and I have ever gone on the Tandem is it was 60 miles an hour. Now, to some people, like on a Tandem, especially a heavier couple, they'd probably fly by us, but 60 miles an hour for us, I think, was pretty good. And I try not to look at my speedometer while it's happening. I look at the bottom and see how we've done. So I'm going to wrap up because I know people might have questions and stuff, but what I want to say, it's just a word of advice. It's kind of funny, but it's like, there's two things I always hear from people, especially if we pass them. One is, that's cheating. And I'm like, how can this be cheating? If this were cheating, everybody would do it. It's, there's a different skill to this. The other one, which is more for the stoker, but it irritates me as well, is she's not pedaling. And so when people say that, as we're passing them, when people say that, I like to say, well, she better be, because I'm not. I'm in charge of steering and shifting. She's in charge of pedaling. So anyway, I'll let you guys ask questions, but in all seriousness, if you ever have a chance, give it a try. Give it a try. It's not a divorce machine. It's a lot of fun. So I'll stop there, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you. That was hilarious. I was going to ask the follow-up question. Maybe you could define what a stoker and a captain is, but you totally just did by saying that, you're the one who's navigating and steering and the stoker is the peddler. Is there anything more to it than that, or is it just that?
Well, seriously, we both pedal, but the stoker is the person in the back who has absolutely no control. They can't shift, they can't brake. And fortunately, again, being 2 women, Jeannie can see over me or around me. I've seen couples where the guy is pretty darn tall and the woman has side views, but not necessarily front views. So, yeah.
Cool. Does anybody else have any questions at all for Jalen or for Ella before we sort of jump in to hear from you and some stories from you? All right. Does anybody have any stories they would like to share? If not, I have one that I can share. So if you need more time to collect your thoughts, I'm more than happy to share.
Lauren, I had a question for Ella.
Yeah.
Hi, Ella. My name's Ilya Kowalchuk. I live up in Boulder, and thanks for sharing your story. So I've been interested in trying out a Tandem with my partner, but I don't know kind of how to go about it. They're pretty expensive, and I just don't know, how to try it.
Yeah. So just by looking at you, I'm assuming you're much taller than me. So there's 2 things. There's Tandem Cycle Works, which is down kind of in the Inglewood area. That actually I just saw on their website. They're doing like a Tandem demo day for people. And the other is there's a Colorado Tandem group. And I personally know of people that are my size that have come and knocked on my door and said, can we give one of your Tandems a try? And I think that community of Tandem riders is always happy to help someone out with a Tandem. And so actually, if you're interested in that option, I can put you in touch. But like I said, Tandem Cycle Works, I just read where they're doing a Tandem demo day.
And I just want to add there's another cool Colorado organization called iCycle Colorado that works for the blind and visually impaired. And so they'll put blind bicyclists or visually impaired bicyclists in the stoker position and have a bicyclist who can see up front. And it's a really cool way to open access to people.
What was the name of that again, Jack? I would like to write it down, and I didn't have my pen handy.
iCycle, EYE, and I'll share it in the chat as well.
Thank you so much. All right. Does anybody have any stories they'd like to share or any questions? You're gonna have me share my story, aren't you, everybody? That's totally okay. Yeah, so my story involves a time when I was doing a grassroots time trial here in Fort Collins. And it was a time trial that I've done, I don't know, probably let's say 20 times. It was like my favorite Tuesday night activity to do in the season before 2020 happened. And the organizer who puts it on up here decided to hold an additional time trial where it was a fundraiser for this gentleman named Damien, who was raising funds to go to the Paralympics as a cyclist. And so everybody who is on the local grassroots racing scene here showed up, and Damien was there, and he was the first off since he was the man of honor, so to speak. And I was shortly behind him because it takes me a little bit longer, let's say, than some of the, Cat 3, 2, 1, I don't know, pros that show up. I'm a casual gravel cyclist, I like to say, and a gravel racer, and I'm not really a time trial person. So all of a sudden I'm hammering down the way, and I see Damien, and I'm like, what is that? What is going on over there with his bicycle? And it turns out he had just gotten a prosthetic leg that had this apparatus that hooked into his SPD pedal, just the same way your cleats would if that's the kind of shoes you have. But what had happened was he had put this sponge in between where his body ended and the legs started, thinking that he would have to collect the sweat, and that would be a really great idea. But it turns out that introduced an air pocket in there that caused the prosthetic to not be attached as steady as it should be. And so it came off of him while he was racing, and it was dragging behind him on his bicycle. And I came up on him, and he was so frustrated, and he only spoke really, really thick Cuban Spanish, and I didn't know what to do or how to help him. But we finally got the leg off once I realized it was connected to the SPD. And I had it, and I didn't know what to do, and I kind of just tossed it over into the side in the grass to make sure nobody ran over it. And then I kept on racing, and he took off like a shot. He was way faster without his prosthetic leg than he was with it, because that's what he was used to riding with. And I told his film crew, there was an entire film crew there filming his experience on his way to the Paralympics, where his leg was, and they went and retrieved it, which is really great news. And then I heard, I left town shortly thereafter, and somebody texted me, and they're like, Lauren, you're on the front of the paper. And I'm like, why would I be on the front of the paper? I think I would know if that was a thing that would happen. And I guess apparently they had taken a picture of the people who were racing the time trial, including Damien, and I just happened to be in the image. There was like only 1 or 2 people plus Damien in it. But I had some thoughts while I was racing behind Damien. This is, I'd probably say, the most peculiar race experience that I've had to date. I didn't really know what to do. It was a time trial. So I was, questioning myself, should I ask for time off because I had to stop and help? But I'm like, why does it even matter? And so I had that whole conversation about like what racing means to me and why I was, even there. And I decided to not tell anybody about what happened with Damien until the next day or until afterwards. So that way nobody knew. And people started contacting me afterwards. And they're like, Lauren, were you there when Damien's leg left? I'm like, yeah, I was. He handled it like a champ, and it was fine. But I'd have to say, at the end of the day, that was the spiciest Tuesday I've ever had and the most interesting bike race. So that's the end of my story there. Yeah. Thank you for clapping. Does anybody have any questions for me, or have you thought of a story you want to share?
I have a story, but I work for Bicycle Colorado, so I will defer my time to somebody else. And Jack's probably heard this story a million times, so I'm going to hold off. But if someone really wants to hear it, it's about me and Quentin and Boulder.
All right, I'll keep you in the back pocket.
I had a story that I could share if we have time.
Definitely.
Cool. So again, my name's Ilya, and I live up in Boulder. I have been in Colorado since '94 and moved out here from Long Island in order to go to school, actually in order to snowboard, but under the guise of going to school. And I got my degree in teaching and started teaching elementary school and middle school here in town. And after quite a bit of time and a little bit of soul searching, we wound up moving overseas to teach in Guatemala. And the whole time I had been involved in outdoor endeavors in different regards, whether it was cycling or mountain biking or triathlon or cyclocross, and trying different things was always a big part of who I am and what I wanted to do. We wanted to, my wife and I wanted to go overseas and teach with our kids in order to just see a little bit more of the world. As teachers, we don't have a ton of disposable income, and we thought that this would be a great way to travel around and see a lot of the world. So in June of 18, we left and packed everything up and moved to Guatemala. When we were moving, the school was very clear that we needed to bring all of our stuff with us that we wanted. And the airline that we flew on was also very clear about baggage limitations because of the economy in Guatemala and trafficking concerns, that we were very limited in the amount of bags that we could bring into the country. So we packed very carefully, and one of the bags that I chose to pack was my bike box. And I brought my my mountain bike with me to Guatemala as one of my 2 bags that I was allowed to check. And I knew that there was mountain biking in Guatemala. I just didn't know that much about where it was and how to access it. I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to not ride my bike while I was overseas. So a couple weeks into our time there, I found that there is, I should say, a downhill mountain biking park about 10 minutes from where we lived in Guatemala City, which was completely shocking and also very, very wonderful. The living in Guatemala was a huge culture shock for me, and the intensity of Guatemala City and the discrepancy and the income and lifestyle that we experienced immediately from working at a school that was $13,000 a semester, United States dollars, in a country as poor as Guatemala was remarkable. To see kids with drivers and bodyguards, and then the people that worked at the school and that worked on the side of the highway selling fruit. It was a remarkable experience to see that. Culture shock for me was really difficult, and I knew that riding my bike was going to be kind of a safe zone for me to feel settled and grounded in the saddle, pushing against the pedals. So about a month after we landed there, I wound up being able to make my way to the bike park, and I packed up my bike and all my stuff, and I went out there, and I remember viscerally pulling into the parking lot and seeing it look exactly like a mountain bike trailhead that I had seen in different parts of the country. And I got my bike out and I put it together. And as I was riding from my car up to the little building where they did the fees and the waivers and all that stuff, I wound up talking to myself, like just doing self-talk, because I was so nervous and scared. And I still don't understand what I was scared about. I think it was just so foreign of an experience that I found myself talking to myself saying, Ilya, you can do this. You know how to ride your bike. You're really good at this. And it was almost like I was trying to remind myself that where I was it felt like it was a sanctuary away from everything else that I had been experiencing in my life, the conflict and the difficulty. And so I walked up and I paid the fee and I spoke in my broken Spanish to try to understand as best I could where the trails were and what they were organized like. And And I kind of got more and more excited. And I wound up going down the first trail, and they had three trails. They had a green, a blue, and a black trail. And I was like, all right, let me try the blue trail and we'll see how that goes. And I can probably make my way down the blue trail pretty well as a fairly accomplished mountain biker. And lo and behold, the trails in Guatemala are extremely different than the trails in Colorado. They actually have dirt in them instead of just straight up rocks and dust. And I made my way about halfway down the first trail and proceeded to crash so hard that I broke a spoke and fell on my face. And like my bike flipped off the trail, that I had to go like run down the side of the trail and pull it out of the underbrush, and dig it out and fix a flat and everything. It was an incredibly spectacular and inauspicious start to my mountain biking in Guatemala. I was terrified. I don't think I had ever fallen on my face mountain biking in in Colorado. But this was the beginning to it all. This was how I was starting. I got back on my bike and made my way down to the end of the trail. And I was the only one there. Apparently the pickup truck had just come and taken everybody back up to the top. And I settled down and I got myself together, and I was embarrassed and confused and scared. And then this really interesting thing happened. I heard the sounds of another biker coming down the trail, and I was nervous because, I crashed and I had to explain myself, and I didn't know like where I had mud in my face and eyes and everything. And I hear this biker start to scream in Spanish. And he said, like, he was screaming, and I heard him say, "Ay, pinche puto," which means things that I don't want to say, but like, for those of you who know Spanish, like it's about as bad as it can get. And he comes like screaming, really angry down the trail, blasting through into the entrance. He throws his bike down on the ground and rips his helmet off of his head and throws it on the ground. And like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And he's got long shaggy hair, and he's like running his hands through his hair, and he's brushing it out, and he looks up and he looks at me, and he had the exact same look on his face that I was feeling. Like, he was embarrassed and humiliated. And what happened was, he had gone off the trail and into the bushes, and he agitated a beehive, and like bees had flown into his helmet and started stinging him as he was coming down the end of the trail. And so it was this wonderful moment where like both of us had mishaps on the trail. He looked at me and he was like, "You have mud all over your face." And I was like, "I know, I don't know what to do." And so he was really upset and humiliated because or embarrassed because he was getting stung by these bees and angry, and I was feeling exactly the same. And it turned out that he spoke English, and we wound up getting to know each other on the pickup ride up to the top of the trail. He had an extra full face helmet in his car that he gave me. We wound up taking laps up and down the mountain bike trails for the rest of the day. And he was showing me all the ins and outs of the trails and where to go and what to do and the best parts of the park. And by the end of the day, I had felt settled and comfortable, and I was enjoying myself. And he had invited me to be a part of this mountain bike WhatsApp chat that all of the guys there were a part of. And for a variety of reasons, we chose to leave Guatemala because we weren't thriving. But I'm still in the WhatsApp chat with those guys, and we still send messages back and forth. And I send them messages from Colorado, and they send me horribly inappropriate messages from Guatemala. And it's just a wonderful reminder to me of the power of bicycles in order to overcome the differences that we may experience as people in different parts of the world, and with different languages and traditions and backgrounds. And so I just wanted to share that. Jalen, when you were telling your story about your happy place and what was home to you, it felt like I could understand that and appreciate it to a degree, not completely, but to say that I understand how we've got that bridge between us as people. So thanks for giving me time. I hope I didn't go on too long.
No, you were great. Thank you so much for sharing. It appears that Erica has told us we have 2 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions for Ilya, or if James, you can get in there for the last 2 minutes.
I'll pass. I'll leave it to I'll just let us kind of absorb these great stories here, and my story will take more than 2 minutes. So I'll to another time for the next storytelling. But I appreciated hearing Jalen's story and Ella's story and Ilya's story. Wonderful. Good storytellers too.
I'll do a super quick one. I've been sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, how do I narrow down to stories? Because I have so many. Lauren Greenfield, I live in Longmont. I've been in Colorado since '91. And because we only have a minute and a half, I'm going to tell a story of something that happened today. I went back to, I had an in-person meeting for the first time in how long? Many, many months. And there were about 7 of us. It was a City of Longmont meeting. And one of the guys at some point, we were talking about wayfinding along the greenways and trails and other places and parks in Longmont. And one of the guys said to me at one point, and he was kind of in and out, really busy. He said, Lauren, I have to tell you, I'm going on a bike packing trip next week. And I was like, wow, where are you going? And he's doing a 500-mile bike packing trip in New Mexico. And I've never known him to ride a bike. And so he was telling me just a little bit about it, you know, when we could sneak in 30 seconds here or there. And he's going with 2 buddies. And this is his first like extended trip. They're 500 miles in 8 days, which is pretty ambitious for a first bike packing trip. And he said to me that I was his inspiration because I rode my bike through Kansas. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that my Kansas trip inspired anyone to do a bike packing trip. But anyway, it felt really good. And I'm super psyched for him. And we're going to have at least a chat before he goes. But it's cool when we can be inspirations, especially riding through Kansas, which was another story for another day.
Yeah, that's really awesome that you've inspired people to do things. And I will say bike packing in the high desert of New Mexico is primo. It's really good.
Said that.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Well, it looks like we have 17 seconds left. So maybe if we want to just head over there and click the leave breakout room button, we'll all just meet back in the main room with everyone. See you there. Well, I think everyone's coming back in here. Maybe everyone's made it already, which is really great. I would like to open up the floor for anybody who has any questions for Jalen or for anybody else that you heard a story from today. Totally okay if you don't have any questions. I just want to make sure we give you time in case you do. Oh,
I have a question for Jalen.
yeah. Emily?
Hi, Jalen. First off, I wanted to say hello. And I know that you do a lot of types of biking. And I wanted to know, you talked about kind of your favorite place, but I guess if you have a favorite kind of biking that you like to do. Like, you know, because I like to gravel bike, and I know that you kind of are in the gravel biking realm. And so let's go ride. But you know, is it mountain biking? Like, you kind of do a lot of it. Do you have a favorite? And why?
I think it would be gravel cycling, or yeah, gravel, because it has some technicality to it. Versus road, I kind of get like pretty bored. And I just started mountain biking, like I'm relatively new, and for the longest time, it has really scared me. And I can't say that anymore. I was doing like 10-foot drops this past weekend, so it's now a new thing. Still scares me, but gravel cycling is kind of like that happy medium for me. And it's also like you can go really far and get into like some really obscure places. Yeah, I like gravel cycling. Thanks for asking.
Jalen, a quick question for you. As you've enjoyed bike packing and planning with a few others to do a significant bike pack next year in 2022, what do you consider to be the one or two most essential items that have saved your butt?
Oh, great question. Essential items. Oh, let's see, that have saved me. A really, really good air pump. I have like a mini floor pump that comes with a like a couple different adapters. And what else? I would say like a really good shelter. I like to sleep in a tarp, but just being able to like have a shelter that is reliable, that's not too heavy, that you feel comfortable in, that you can get a good night's sleep in, as well as a sleeping bag, kind of like that whole sleep system, I think is pretty important because you can't keep riding if you're not sleeping well.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And is that mini floor pump a Lazine?
Correct.
So if I, as a co-moderator, could have an indulgence, I wanted to ask Clara a question. She was in our breakout group and just had an amazingly motivational story to share. And I'm just curious, Clara, and this is really for any of our guests, what do you see as the sort of the future as this, I want to call it an industry, but as bicycling tries to or is working towards being more inclusive, like what do you think is either needed or where do you see us going? So kind of a general question.
Well, I'll start off just because you had kind of directed it toward me. I think understanding that bicycling can take so many different forms. And I think, when we think of a bike, we think of a typical two-wheeled bike. But really, and this was mentioned in my breakout room with Phil too, he talked about modified trikes to get seniors out who have mobility issues. In the Paralympic movement, we have riders riding competitively on trikes. We also have hand cyclists who aren't able to ride with their legs, so they're powered by their arms entirely. And I think exposing all of these different sides of cycling and increasing, I guess, media coverage, as well as, having industry leaders like acknowledge forms of cycling beyond just what you had kind of specified, the very like specific box, I guess, when you consider a cyclist. But I mean, we all ride bikes and we all kind of take different forms, and there are ways to modify bikes. I think that was kind of the big takeaway that I was hoping people would have, is that, like everybody is able to adapt a bike to fit their specific needs and, in varying degrees. But I think it's an incredible mode of transportation and way to see the world. And yeah, excited to kind of help spread the word. And I think it starts here and then only can grow, hopefully a snowball effect of getting more people talking. And yeah, hopefully.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else want to take a quick 30-second go at that question?
I wanted to like extend off that question for Jalen again, because about like inclusivity and like representation. And I don't know if you had the chance to mention the Black Foxes at all. And wanted to give you like, if you wanted to mention that at all, because I think that is a super, super cool platform that you are part of creating. And I don't know, I really admire it. And yeah, just wanted to give you that platform if you hadn't already mentioned it to everyone else.
Yeah, thank you. I'll like kind of sum up a response for both of those. I am a part of an organization or company rather called the Black Foxes, and we are a collective of Black cyclists and outdoors people who control our narratives and create space within outdoor spaces and within the industry for people like us to kind of exist. And I think something that is really that I see and would like to see and kind of expect and am doing work to make happen is more ownership by Black, Indigenous, and people of color within these various industries, particularly cycling. Like, I don't want to keep asking like majority white companies and for things. You know, I'm a sponsored writer. I want to be able to own my own company and support my community members the way that I know, you know, suits them. So I think as far as being more inclusive, and kind of increasing that diversity and justice, ownership is definitely at the forefront of my mind as now a new entrepreneur and small business owner. Yes, there it is. Ilya is holding up a really cool issue that Sizu magazine did on us.
It is absolutely remarkable. Like, if you haven't bought this yet, you have to buy it. It's one of the most beautiful cycling magazines I've ever gotten. And it's just straight up all gorgeous photos and people having amazing times on their bikes and remarkable recipes and arguments for going vegan. It's just so cool. So,
and
it
there's
comes
a
in
design. It comes with a Zine as well through Cyclista Design, and she does these like monthly, I think, Zines. That one was, I think, done by people of color, but then the next one was people of all shapes or all body sizes on bikes, and just her Zines are really cool. So I encourage you to check out her work that she does too. It's really inclusive and great.
Are there any links that people can share for these magazines or these zines? I follow a couple of y'all on Instagram, but I've not seen any actual hard copy material just yet.
So it's Ciclista Zine is.
I put it in the chat just now.
Thank you. Please be prepared to get your ass kicked. Like, she doesn't fuck around.
Oh, I know.
Like,
yeah,
she's so badass. It's amazing.
Yeah, I follow her on Instagram, but I've not actually seen any of her hard like material work.
I cried after reading the first one in that Sisu issue.
That's good to see. I'm really excited to get to know some of you more too. Jalen, you're really inspirational as a BIPOC myself, and well, I'm over 50 now, so I was part of the early vanguard of trying to push on this way back, and it's been a challenge, and it's really inspiring to see younger people pick up the torch and really move the ball down the field, so to speak. What you're doing is really cool, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And quick question, I believe Betty connected us. Is that true?
I don't know if she did. Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I will connect with you after this.
I would love to talk more. There's things that I think there's like some connections that we could all riff off of. So I'd love to chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's also another great magazine. I don't know if other folks are interested, but the other one that I found that is less social justice centered, but it's a part of it, is called Broken and Coastal. I don't know if anybody else knows about that one, but that's another great independently published magazine. And this past issue that they did was all about atypical folks who are pushing pedals in all different sorts of ways.
Cool.
Well, I think that's about it for us then. Thank you, everybody. And Erica, if you could put up the slides so people can see a few things that they can do also, in addition to checking out those awesome resources that we just shared in the chat. It's loading. Yeah. So what's next for you? There's a member drive you can join today at this link here. There's also a Gear Up fundraiser that you can register for there. And then Erica, can you let us know, are you going to be sending a follow-up email to the attendees with a recording of the different breakouts?
Yes. Yeah, so you'll get a recording of both breakout rooms if our technology is successful as we planned, and you'll get that by tomorrow. We'll send you a follow-up email with a lot of these links that have been talked about today, as well as the recordings and these links on this what's next slide.
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have to tell people to write them down, so that's why I was asking. Thank you so much. But yeah, there will be a silent auction as part of the Gear Up fundraiser from June 2nd to June 12th. And then you have options for virtual or in person, depending on where you're at and what your schedule's like. And then if you have a story that you want to share, if you know somebody that would be a great storyteller, feel free to email info@bicyclecolorado.org so that way we can hear their story. And I think with that, we're done for the evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you all so much. It's such great stories.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.